what's going on, guys? Caleb Wisted here. I'm in my office today and I'm doing a little digital scouting for my next fishing trip. Today I wanted to stop and share with you my top 5 apps and programs that I use when I'm scouting a new location, whether that be 2 miles from my house or 2,000 miles from my house. I can figure out a lot about that body of water without ever having to leave my office. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of this video, because I'm also going to give you 3 more tips on planning ahead for a spot you've never fished before. But for now, let's get into it with number 1. So Navionics is typically where I start. Navionics is going to give you depth contours for almost any water body in the US and Canada. So if you pick a lake, you can go to Navionics, check the depth contours on it, find those offshore reefs, points, drop-offs, basins, all that kind of stuff is going to be on Navionics. 1-foot contours, and it's a very intuitive app, so it's very easy to use. However, you do have to be careful. Sometimes Navionics is not correct, and sometimes the depth contours are wrong. I've found on some lakes. It's rare, but there is some lakes that are way off. I'll give you a tip for kind of another app to use that can counter that and make sure you can kind of cross-reference the two and make sure that you're right. But for the most part, Navionics is a great way to start your search for structure. The second app I use in conjunction with Navionics is Google Earth, and also Apple Maps to an extent. Both of these have aerial satellite photography, and you can zoom in and you can see actual weeds and reefs, exactly where weed lines are, exactly where rock piles are, just seeing through the water from above. So these are going to tell you things that you cannot see on Navionics. You can only see depths on Navionics. So it's really hard to tell if there's weeds there, if there's a muck, if there's sand, if there's rock. Oftentimes on clear water bodies, you can see all these things in shallower water, especially with satellite view. So I'll use my Navionics to get my exact depth, but then I'll cross-reference that with Google Maps, and that's how I'm going to kind of figure out where to start. So those are used in conjunction oftentimes when I'm scouting ahead, those 2 first apps. Now the third app is an app that I'm super excited about, and this one is Omnia Fishing's map. So Omnia has combined a whole bunch of tools in one, and basically Omnia has actually linked with Navionics, so you can see the Navionics mapping within the Omnia app. It also has satellite, so you can see the surrounding area. You can turn off the mapping and see into the water, just like you can with Google Maps. Also, the biggest thing Omnia has done is they've taken user data from, I think it's Humminbird or Lowrance, I'm not sure, that's been uploaded to the cloud, and they've mapped lakes that have been basically gone over by actual boats, and they've collected data for actual depth. So this is where you can cross-reference Navionics with Omnia, and oftentimes Omnia is dead on and Navionics may be off, because Omnia is actually using data from a sonar that's gone over that area. The coolest thing about Omnia is you can use the bottom hardness data of these boats that have gone over areas, so that you can see if it's rock, sand, or muck without ever having to go there, even in deep water. So I've found some great hard to soft bottom transitions using this, and you never have been able to have that capability until Omnia came out with this feature. So all of that gets put into the Omnia app, as well as wind. So you've got a wind feature on there. You can see the wind pattern ahead of time before you go. So if you want to fish warm water and that wind's been pushing warm water into a bay for a couple of days, you'll know, because you can see the wind direction and actually overlay it on the map itself to see where the wind's going to be blowing, how strong it's going to be blowing, and when it's switching down to the exact time. So it's a great overall app to use when you're scouting ahead to go fishing. Now, we mentioned weather. The 4th app I use is the Weather Channel. So the Weather Channel is a great forecasting app. It's very intuitive. You can set it up for basically any kind of alerts you want to get if there's weather coming. You can customize it, and it has lots of great layers for clouds and radar, lightning strikes, all kinds of things. It's a very useful, intuitive app for weather forecasting. So that is number 4. And then number 5 is something that I definitely use, not every time, but especially for certain species and at certain times of year. I'm going to use iSolunar. This is basically a lunar and solar tables mapping app. And this will tell you way out into the future exactly what the time periods are going to be on those solar tables, so that you can hit it exactly when those peak times are. And you know, some people really pay attention to that, some people don't. I definitely do. I don't let it ruin my trip if I'm not hitting those peak times just right, but I'll pay extra attention and make sure I'm on good spots when I hit those peak times. So that's app number 5. All right, so there you have it. There's your top 5 apps and programs that I personally use to scout ahead of time whenever I'm going to a new body of water. Now, let me get into 3 extra tips here that'll help you next time you're scouting for an area. Number 1, look for forums. There's often old forums that are archived that have tons of information on almost any body of water, if it's a big body of water at all, and it's somewhat popular. There will be information about that body of water, and you never know what you're going to get. There could be just about anything, and there could be some really good tips on that particular body of water in fishing forums. So just Google fishing forum, the lake that you're looking for, and a lot of times you'll find gold when you're scouting for a new spot. Number 2, write this stuff down. So have a little journal, keep it on your phone, write down whatever information that you can think of. And then also mark spots ahead of time that you want to fish. So write stuff down and mark spots on your Navionics app or your chart plotter ahead of time, so that you have a starting point and a little milk run of spots that you want to check and verify that they are actually what you thought they were, and possibly holding fish as well. So that's tip number 2, is take notes and make waypoints. All right, tip number 3 is when you actually finally get to the lake. The one thing that's really hard to check is water clarity. So what I'll usually do, first thing I do when I get on the water, is I'll take a white bait, like a white jig or plastic. I'll drop it down until it disappears and I can't see it anymore. I'll stop the rod tip, I'll lift it out and get a rough measurement of how far I could see that bait. And that gives me a pretty good estimate of water clarity, which is going to tell me where the weed line is likely to stop, what colors to use in that particular water body, etc. So that's tip number 3. Check your water clarity once you get on the water. Hopefully this video was super useful for you guys. I will leave a link down below for the Omnia fishing app, as well as the rest of these apps. Make sure you check those out, and I really appreciate it, guys. I'm going to leave another video here for you. Thanks for watching. Get hooked up.